the Atlas comes preloaded with 6 factory presets that you can get to with the toggle switch. And then additionally, we have there's a bass preset mode, and you can access that by, when you power it on, holding down the control button here, and that'll set it into bass mode, and you won't have to. It'll be like that until you reset it, and that gives you another set of presets that are specifically tuned for bass. And so, bass has a different dynamic range than guitar, and different attack characteristics for compressors are going to sound better on bass.
So when you're compressing a bass signal, the frequency content is obviously way different than in a guitar, and you need to actually slow down the compressor a little bit more than you would for a guitar, because what happens is when you're handling bass frequencies, the compressor can actually do too good of a job of following it because it's slow enough, and then you get distortion. So if you slow it down, you don't have the ability to follow those waveforms, and so some of the bass versions have a slower release, for example, than the guitar versions would, or a slightly slower attack.
Things like the dual band compressors, we have the ability to move that crossover point, that crossover frequency, where you want it higher for guitar because it's a higher ranged instrument. You're going to want that lower for bass, anywhere from 80 to 100 hertz to 150 hertz, something like that. And that'll allow you to get the lowest strings on the bass a little more isolated from the higher range.
The 76 is really good for anything that has a lot of percussive elements, fast transients, so slap bass is a good use for it, pick bass, anything where you have a lot of dynamic range that has percussive sounds. It's really good at reining that in.
Look ahead is where you introduce a small amount of delay into the signal. And what that allows you to do is effectively see the future. And it's something you can only really do in a digital compressor. I mean, technically you could do it in an analog compressor if you're using an analog delay line or something like that, but it's not commonly done. And so if you can sort of see what's coming before you have to compress it, you can effectively use, faster attack times, and you won't get distortion. And in this case, it adds a little bit of latency. That's the only way you can do it, because otherwise it's, you'd have to bend space-time, which we can't do in this pedal, I'm afraid. So it adds a little bit of latency, and 1 millisecond is a very short amount of time. And if you think about the amount of time it takes sound to move in air, the speed of sound in air, 1 millisecond is about the difference between, if you had your ear a foot away from an amp, 1 millisecond more delay would be about 2 feet. So it's about 1 foot per millisecond.
So these are units that used to plug into the guitar directly, and then the cable would come out of here, and you had an on and off switch, and that's it, right? So it's a little bit on the dirtier side of compression. It's got some artifacts to it, super fast release to it.